This is what I was thinking of, like, watching with you guys. Yu-Gi-Oh! Player starts biting during a tournament. Are you guys ready for this bullshit?
The year was 2024.
Mm-hmm.
An
Last
ancient
year?
city was discovered in Ecuador.
Honestly, I didn't know about that
A
bit.
banana stuck to a wall sold for $6 million.
I also did not know about that bit.
Drake was no longer allowed within 100 meters of a playground. And the star of today's tale, Heartbeat Collide, was about to attend a local Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. Now, for a bit of context, this locals was quite a bit more sweaty than your standard events, with the vast majority of players typically being a bit more on the competitive side and sticking to decks proven to be strong.
Oh, Drama King at tier 0 is crazy.
So for this event, Heart wanted to bring something that, whilst not considered top tier, was still able to compete at that level. Dino. In Yu-Gi-Oh! Dino is an archetype that is known for two things. Child abuse due to continuously beating up baby dinosaurs to gain card advantage, and one completely absurd card that you're only allowed to play one copy of due to how busted it can be. Miscellaneosaurus.
Damn!
This card has a couple of effects, but the only one I want you to remember for this video, as it's the most toxic part about the card, is the first effect. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to make all dinosaur monsters you control completely unaffected by your opponent's effects. This not only applies to dinosaur monsters already on the field, but all dinosaur monsters you summon that turn, essentially meaning your opponent typically cannot interact with a single thing you do. They can't negate your monster effects, they can't destroy your monsters, they can't really do much at all. All they can do is sit back and watch as you flood the field with a billion different dinosaur monsters whilst bullying a small child. The tournament began and Heart was off to a banger of a start, managing to beat a Kashtira,
while bullying a small child is crazy. Also, WWE?
Bell, and a Raid Raptor player, landing himself a spot in the semi-upper bracket final. I'm not gonna lie, I have no clue what it's called, but he's managed to make it here. Heart takes a seat at their assigned table and looks up to find himself being stared down by a very serious looking individual. This man was not here to play games.
Damn.
Well, he was, but you get what I mean. Both players roll a die to see who goes first, with Heart coming out the victor and choosing to go first. Game 1 begins, and Heart immediately begins his turn by activating his singular copy of Misk. This was met by an incredibly loud grunt coming from his opponent's side of the table, followed by an instant concede. This kind of caught Heart off guard, but a win's a win, I guess, so we move on to Game 2. At this point, Heart had absolutely no clue what his opponent was playing. So in between games, he decided to side in a bunch of generically good going second stuff. Kaijus, Sphere Mode, and Lava Golem. These are monsters that contribute...
Oh, I get why the opponent was mad now.
...your opponent's stuff in order to summon themselves to the opponent's side of the field in their place.
I get it now.
His opponent starts his turn and began slamming cards onto the field. Turns out he was playing Unchained, and after spending a good 8 to 10 minutes-ish setting up his field, he passed the turn. Unfortunately for him, he'd made a grave mistake.
Oh no.
He'd ended on 3 monsters. The perfect amount for Heart to simply tribute all of them in order to summon a worthless 0-attack egg to his opponent's side of the field. His opponent was clearly fuming as he roughly scooped up his stuff, mumbled something thankfully inaudible under his breath, before getting up and walking away.
Okay.
But this isn't the last we'll see of this guy.
Oh my god.
You see, this tournament has a lower bracket, so he dropped down here, which means we might just meet him again in the final. Heart took a seat at his assigned table before raising his head to be met yet again by an incredibly serious looking face, only this time it was quite a bit more grouchy looking. Heart won the dice roll and chose to go first, and after popping a few babies, he entered on a pretty formidable end field of dinos, and so he passed the turn.
We love
dinos. As soon as his
dinos.
opponent went to activate a card effect, Heart once again revealed that he'd drawn the singular copy of Misk by discarding it to the graveyard to make his field completely unaffected.
Damn!
So where the fuck is my call by? Heart jumped back in his seat upon hearing the sudden outburst from his opponent. Called by the Grave is a spell card that can negate the effects of cards in the graveyard, and since Misk is sent to the graveyard to use its effect, it's a known counter to the card. Unfortunately, apparently his opponent hadn't drawn it, and so we move on to Game 2. Which wasn't very exciting as Hart just drew no board breakers against a full board, so move on to Game 3. Once again, Hart began abusing small children. After a good few minutes of continuously destroying baby dinosaurs, he ended on an end field of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, Apollosa, and 2 Evozar Xyz monsters.
I get it now. I get why Blood was mad. I absolutely understand why Bro was mad now. On fucking God, I would have been tilted. I honestly would have been fucking tilted. Understandable, have a nice day.
This time, it was his opponent's turn to do the tributing. He began his turn by immediately tributing off both Evozar Xyz monsters, leaving a lava golem in their place. And with 2 threats now gone, he began attempting to combo off himself. A few negates later through Apollosa's effect, and his opponent had only managed to get a singular monster onto the field and 2 back row. After beating over the Apollosa, he ended his turn. Hart drew a card for turn before activating the effect of UTC, popping a baby dinosaur in hand to flip all of his opponent's monsters into face down defense position, while simultaneously also triggering the effect of the baby in the graveyard to summon a dinosaur to the field. His opponent responded by flipping one of his set cards, Escape of the Unchained. This card allowed him to target one monster he controls and the UTC's opponent controlled and destroy them both. It was at this moment Hart reached into his hand and pulled out a card, before slowly placing a Mystiladiosaurus into the graveyard. UTC was now completely immune to the effects of the trap. His opponent appeared to have just frozen, just staring blankly at the Misk in the graveyard without moving a muscle.
I'm just saying, the more the story goes on, I completely understand. I completely get it now. I'm just saying, understandable, have a nice day.
A few seconds go by before he suddenly reached over and snatched the Misk from the grave. Alright, that's a bit rude. If he wanted to just read the card, he could have just, what's he doing? Hart watched his opponent reach into the card sleeve before yoinking it out. He then placed a corner of the card right in between his teeth and clamped down hard. Before Hart could even say a word, his opponent ripped the card away from his face, leaving an entire corner of the card still firmly clamped between his teeth. He then proceeded to get up, spit the corner onto the ground, scoop up his stuff, and without saying a word to anyone, walked out the exit of the store as if nothing had happened, leaving Hart still sitting in his chair, completely stun-locked by what he just witnessed. He may have won the event, but now he only owned 3/4 of a Mystiladiosaurus. And so that brings us to the end of today's tale.
No! That is insane! This is so fucking funny!
Thank you so much, Hart, for sharing your story in the comment section of one of my previous story videos. And as per usual, if you too have a story from your time playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And like to have it recreated in this series, feel free to write it down in the comments below. Just make sure to leave enough context and detail so
I'm just saying, yeah, hopefully he was bad for that, but I'm just saying, I get it. I low-key get it. Like, you're tilted to, like, the point of, like, you know, beyond tilt. I completely understand. Like, I mean, I don't encourage anyone to fucking do it. Like, don't fucking do that, right? But at the same time, like... Oh my god. It's so funny.